Listeners everywhere, welcome to the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan, the weekly fix for your screen addiction and a trusted source for discussion of all things film and television. Please keep in mind that for the purposes of this podcast, Joel and Ryan are not acting as journalists, but rather fellow moving picture enthusiasts. All of their opinions should be taken as such. Also, please be warned that while Joel and Ryan may seem like petulant children, they are, in fact, adults who may occasionally use adult language. While they promise to bleep out all the worst words, it's a good bet you will still understand what they were saying. And now, with no further ado, here's Joel and Ryan.
Hey everyone.
Hey, welcome to the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. And I'm Joel.
And I'm Ryan.
And we're super thrilled to be back with you again. We missed you.
We skipped we took a summer vacation there.
Yep. We needed we just needed a little 7-day vacay because we're so busy. Everything is just so much is going on. There is. I joke, but there actually is a ton going on, and but yeah,
we've had busy, uncharacteristically busy lives in the last couple of weeks. So
it's weird how busy you can be when there's nothing going on, and and there's really nothing to to do, and really nothing going on except when everything's going on.
Nothing conventional going on.
Yeah, so that's thank you. That's the better way to put it. Nothing conventional is going on.
This is
stuff.
All.
Yeah. So anyway, we're super happy. We will. We hope that you have enjoyed all of our shows. The Jaws show, but the shows with our guest hosts. There will be more of that because we're not going to be able to do this show with Ryan and I in the same room unless we sometime wanted to take the show out of doors and go on the road.
Even then, we wouldn't be next to each other. We'd be 7 feet apart.
Yep.
7 feet apart, you might as well be 15 miles apart.
There you go. But thanks
we're making this work. Everybody is, right?
We're making, and thank goodness for technology. So we got this going on. But yeah, so we'll have some more. But today, Ryan and I just wanted to just do a show, just the two of us. We just sort of thought it would be fun to catch up on some stuff, some general questions, some, if you were listeners to the show, sometimes we do the hot takes. Sometimes we do
Let's get some hot takes.
Yeah, and we have the Tickertainment Trend Tracker, which has been on the fritz lately because of and we can't get our Tickertainment.
Bye.
Yeah, and we can't get the Tickertainment repair person out because of the coronavirus. So, so
they'll come out, but we just don't feel it's responsible to.
Well, yeah, and we can do the show. We can do the show without the Tickertainment Trend Tracker. It's just a little more difficult, and we don't have the that going on. So, but we have these, we call them the B segments in our show because usually we have a main topic, and then we do some questions and stuff in the second part. But today we are going to make.
I have a question.
I have a question. We're going to do some of those questions. We're going to do a lot of those things. Some of these are we're going to do them as the show. I'm calling it Ryan and the B segments, and
that would have been a perfect time to play something. But,
well,
I got nothing.
I got nothing either. But that's just.
I got something.
Okay.
Give me 2 seconds.
No, that's fine. I can edit this out.
All I have is this. I call it the synth blast, which I use every once in a while. But it's better than nothing. So don't edit it out. It's okay that everyone sees this.
Yeah. Hey.
Just do one of your little segues that ends with what we're calling this again.
All right. Well, so we're doing these questions, and I am calling this Ryan and the B segments.
There we go.
Boom.
Better than nothing.
And so, so some of these are questions sent in by listeners. We did that whole big show where we took questions from our listeners, and
we had our anniversary show, which was fun. That was like get to know us show. That was weird, but it was cool.
And
we just thought we'd do one of those, catching up with Joel and Ryan.
Yeah.
As a bunch of B segments, and we can just talk about varied things. We don't have to study a specific movie.
Get that synth sounder ready again.
Okay.
So sometimes, the other name for this is get to know Joel and Ryan some more. There you go.
That was twice as lame, so good. That was worth doing.
So so I have some questions from listeners. There's some questions that I just have thought up. I have scoured some social media sites to see if there's any fun questions out there in the world. And we're just gonna see. So let's just start with a basic thing, since you and I haven't talked aside from texting back and forth as we do so often. What are the last 4 films you've watched?
Oh, well, let me think. The last 4 films I watched were Consenting Adults and The Good Son, both moody but underwhelming thrillers from 1992. And then last night I watched The Paper and Ransom, which are the 2 Ron Howard films that are shot in the 1.85 aspect ratio, also from the mid to late 90s. Mm-hmm. Tonight I'm watching Cocoon and Willow. I'm basically watching all of Ron Howard's movies this week. Nice. Thursday night I watched Apollo 13. I think that's his best movie. I
just off the top of my head, I would agree with that. I really
Beautiful
do like
Mind
The Paper.
Won the Oscar, and that's a decent enough movie. I don't know that it's an Oscar-winning movie, but I think if you look back at the year that won, there isn't like some movie where you go, that one was robbed. Usually when a film wins Best Picture, there's almost always something hanging out there. Either it's half the time it's the obvious and right choice. The other half the time, when something weird or something more conventional wins, then maybe something more avant-garde, which Beautiful Mind is certainly a more conventional film.
Yep.
You think, they just were scared to vote for something that was different, but
sure. And it's like
not really the case that year. It just was a weird year where prestige films were fine, but there was none that were truly great.
Yeah. And it was one of those years where it was like, we have a chance to give an Academy Award to, a guy with a great body of work in a very popular body of work, Ron Howard. So
he's he's a really great storyteller, but he's just not a very interesting director. He just isn't.
Right.
But one thing he's just brilliant at, it in Backdraft, and he's brilliant at it in Parenthood. And last night you could see he was brilliant at it in The Paper. And never has he been more brilliant at it than in Apollo 13. Apollo 13 is great with the 3 guys trapped in the little capsule and all the little real life things that they make feel so exciting about that, which were what is really great. Where that film really comes to life is in the place you'd least expect, which is the control room in Houston.
Yep.
And all that massive group of really small parts played by really interesting and diverse cast of actors, and they're all given their moments, even if they're just reaction shots. I don't have it in front of me, but I'm just off the top of my head, Max Grodenchik, Mark McClure, Clint Howard, Lauren Dean, obviously Gary Sinise comes in at a ringer at the end, Christian Clemenson. These maybe you don't know these names very well. I don't know, but Ray McKinnon, the group of people playing these different heads of these different departments in Mission Control are all fantastic actors, and none of them are, unless it's obvious that it's time for them to, none of them are taking stage. They're all supporting the work, and yet Ron makes each of them a star in their own way. It's just wonderful. I can't describe it any other way. There's not a dull moment or a off moment or a moment in that whole film that doesn't ring true. but I think most movies, you're certainly going to have mission control, but I think most movies you got Ed Harris, the guy in charge, and maybe he's got somebody breathing down his neck. But, you know, even in The Martian, we only get to know a couple of those people.
Right.
In Apollo 13, you just feel like you learned about what they all do, even though it's hardly like a lesson in space, you know, exploration. It's a crisis, and these teams are fighting for these astronauts' lives in this crisis.
Well, and it's, you know, and part of Apollo 13, and what's great about that is Apollo 13, there's no villain outside of, you know, space and dying is the villain.
Right. And it's not a science fiction movie. It's a drama, but it's more than anything, it's a very unique survival movie.
Yeah. It's a survival movie. And so you have all
There's
of these people.
There's no bear hunting you.
Well, yeah, it's a survival movie. It's a survival movie when the people that need to survive really can't do much.
Right.
They're not the ones in charge of their survival.
Right. Although they certainly did their part to.
Right. You know, they had the burn, and there's a lot that they had to do just simply to stay alive. But the mechanic, and then it relied on the work of all of these other people it's great from everyone from the.
It's still to this day an extraordinary movie, and I lament movies like its passing. I mean, they're still around, but a movie like Apollo 13 would come out today, and it wouldn't be, maybe with all those stars, if you could get whoever the stars of today are, I don't. It, to me, even though it's only back in the 90s, it's still the days when that was the big movie of the year are gone. They're just gone. If you don't have 10 times the budget of that, and if you're just not loading on, it's not that you can't be substantive still, but if you're not loading on the escapism, the corporations aren't interested in paying for you. And yet we haven't lost movies like that, those true story movies that Joel likes to point out, that they're still around, and they're a little less extravagant than Apollo 13, but only a little less, but they're just not the movies that are storming up the box office, and, you know, they just aren't anymore. It's to me, I hate to be one of those old guys who just complains about stuff, but that's the film I put up. I really do. And it's not that it's that special, but it is somehow. It's truly greater than the sum of its parts, and capturing all that humanity and juggling all those personalities, and in the edit, making sure that all the best moments come to life in a way that doesn't feel like a highlight reel. You know, that's directing, and that's Ron Howard. You got to give him credit for that, because he didn't just do it the one time. He did it 4 or 5 times where he did that kind of film, and the results were just wonderfully human. So that answers your what are the last 4 movies you watched. That wasn't even the last 4, but it was just last 2 nights ago. So
let's see, for me, we've been doing a lot of documentaries here. There's some really wonderful documentary series.
I'm stunned by that you want to spend more time with real life during all this.
Well, but it's real life, sort of like, speaking of Ron Howard, there's a documentary that Bryce Dallas Howard did for Apple TV called Dads, and it's a documentary about fatherhood.
That sounds kind of neat, actually.
Yeah, it's quite lovely, and she interviews. There's lots of celebrity dads that she's interviewing, but then
because she really focuses a documentary about actual dads.
Yeah, but then she actually focuses on, there's sort of these 4 different dads, and actually from like, one's in Brazil and then one's in Spain, but these dads sort of redefining what that role of dad is. Some of them are stay-at-home dads. Some of them is a dad of a child with disabilities and stuff. So it's just sort of redefining how the modern age, the age that we're in, has redefined being a dad, and it's and it's cut in with these,
and it really has.
Yeah.
really has.
Well, yeah, and and I'm one of those. My wife is the one who, she's the one with the consistent, regular paycheck job, and certainly on a yearly basis makes more than me, depending on what shows I'm doing. But yeah, and it falls upon me to, I'm the primary child, caregiver for our kid. So that, and that's so, yeah. So, and maybe because of that, or maybe it was just a really good documentary. That one obviously really, struck a chord with me. But there's also some other great documentary series on Disney Plus on like the history, like the making of Disney World, which has been great. There was a really wonderful documentary on the making of Frozen 2. That was a whole series. So we've been, so it's been reality.
They did a making of series on the making of a 2-hour movie.
Yeah, because the movie was, it essentially chronicled the last year of putting this movie together.
So it's kind of like a how-to on how to make a big digitally animated movie.
Yeah, and how many people go into it, and it's
Rather
and
than,
talking
obviously it's Frozen 2 specific, but it's not a Frozen 2 thing. It's more, this is how you do this.
This is what everybody went through, and it's like the animator who literally was working on the 7 seconds that Elsa slides up, where she like slides up this ice thing that she's made and has to stop herself at the top while she's listening to this voice, and that 7 seconds.
At the end of the making of for Attack of the Clones, there's this long segment about how they're just trying to get the animation right of Yoda saying, "Begun this Clone Wars has," and all the effort that went into it was insane. And you can't, when you watch it, you can't argue that it didn't like get better every time they took a note. Even though some of the notes were infuriatingly vague.
Yep. Yeah, and
sometimes you don't know how to fix something. You just know that's not quite right yet.
That's a big part of what this documentary chronicles throughout. It's like, I think it's 6 or 8 episodes long, and they're about an hour. But the whole one of the big climaxes of the sort of one of the big reveals of the movie, they sort of knew what it was, but they had no idea how to make it clear. And they had a whole song and every all this stuff in there, and then it just kept coming back to it, going, it's just not right. Why is this not working? And they're all just like, we don't know what this is yet. We think we know, but then we do something. And of course, anytime they're like, well, what if we try this? Well, when you say, what if we try this, that involves, 40 animators and sound people and all this stuff, just to see if this thing works. And then
something a shot.
Yeah. And then it's like, one of the scenes is one guy going, yeah, so they've redone this, and he just goes delete, and they're like, that's my last word. I just had to delete, essentially, and it dumps it down into a, but essentially he's deleting the work that he's done for the last, or that 7 people have done for the last, 5 weeks, as they're seeing if they can, and then, and it's like, okay, well, what if we just need to start from scratch and write a new, so they had to get the Lopez's to write a whole new song, and kind of come out from it, and get Idina Menzel in to sing it, and and then tweak it, and so it's it's a really fascinating look at how to
Adil Dazeem back from the first one.
What's that?
They couldn't get Adil Dazeem back from the first one?
No, she was busy, so they had to get Idina Menzel. They had to get the poor man's Adil Dazeem. But yeah, so
she's still good, don't get me wrong.
Yeah, she's all right. She's I think she'll be okay in this business.
Probably.
But yeah, so that's what we've been watching a lot.
A lot of art is like that. It's it's kind of funny because you meet people who either think that's all it is, just having the right feel, and if you're just the right guy that some fan likes because he did some movie that you like, that everything will be okay, or they think that it's all sort of technical, and if it's a lot just
Yeah.
You don't know what it is, and you got to kind of figure it out. That sort of problem solving.
Yeah.
Especially on that level where, like you say, you got an army of humans involved, but you don't have really, other than the voice work, you don't have any human inhabiting a certain situation
right.
in a human natural way when you're animating and you're creating this stuff from scratch, just the way Little Mermaid's hair moves around underwater is like, takes a lot of work and a lot of thought.
Yep.
And it doesn't have to look right. It just has to feel right. And
yeah,
that's hard to achieve.
It is.
Sometimes.
It's really great. Yeah, and so it's really great, and they really do. They talk to. I mean, obviously, there's the main people, Jennifer Lee, the director, who's also the head of Disney Animation. So she's in charge of all of the animation projects, and she was writing and directing Frozen 2. And I can't remember her directing partner's name, but so they, obviously a big part of it is them, but then there's also, all the way down to these, these animators and the people who are, just who are there, who are running different meetings to, and then, yeah. So, I mean, so it was really great. And to, talk about going, I got a new, 8-second segment that I got to animate today, or, that I got. So I know that I'll be looking at reindeer for the next 4 weeks. And so it's like, geez, yeah. And then that, you think about that and you multiply it by a 2-hour film or hour and a 90-minute film. And it's so it was, it's really, it was really great. I really did go into it thinking it was just going to be this fluffy little thing that I thought, well, this will be a fun way to kill some hours in the day. And
but
Jennifer
it really
and I,
gets into the, well, it would have
yeah, we're
to.
like, wow,
It's gonna be
you
a-
get to
a
totally nerd
series.
out. Yeah, I get to totally nerd out on this stuff, and it's just really.
And any
really
kids
terrific.
out there that are thinking of becoming animators, which
Mhm.
a lot do, you see that a lot on little, what is your career goal?
Well, yeah.
To see what that job really can be very telling.
And to realize, and also to realize how many different little aspects go into it, because there are people that literally their job is just to colorize things. And then there's people whose entire jobs are just animating the background and making it feel seamless, so it's like every little, we want to think, oh, there's an animator, so I'm going to be animating Olaf the snowman, blah, blah, blah. But no, there's that, but there's also people that have to animate the snow falling in the background. And, and that's, people have made their whole careers doing that too. So, yeah, so it is really,
in particular, is really hard to animate.
Yeah.
Snow is a little easier, but still.
So, yeah, so that was really fun and fascinating on a nerd thing. All right, so let's
go. You have to see Frozen 2 to enjoy it, do you think?
I think you will. Well, I don't know. I don't know.
That's not going to happen.
I mean, I liked Frozen 2. There are some elements. Well, because there's.
Would I have to go back and watch Frozen to understand what's going on in Frozen 2?
No.
I just don't see myself doing any of these things. But
yeah, no. I mean, I don't think so. I think, to me, I mean, I think they're. Excuse me. I think they're good movies. In their own right.
I don't doubt that.
But so I mean, there are some things. I think the documentary was clearly made with the assumption that you are very familiar with this world, this Frozen verse. And so there are some things. It is really great. Like I was talking about this whole big, pivotal moment that they spend the entire series trying to figure out. You as an audience member watching this documentary sitting there going, how are they not getting to, because by the time, like so many things, you get to it and you're like, oh my God, that's the most, how did we not think of this? That is the obvious thing to do. And it makes so much sense and it clarifies all this stuff. And so you as the audience member are going, why aren't you getting there? We're, because of course we've seen the movie.
Because you've seen the final result.
Because we've seen the final result and you're like, how are you not, that's so weird that you're not, that you don't, and it's because they're in the forest. They're there and they're just in the muck and trying to figure it out, and they're just not seeing that, they're trying to step back and see the big picture, but they're just struggling with that, and it's because that's that's also what happens when you're trying to make something new, is you're just, sometimes you get really bogged down in the details and you don't see the larger picture.
I like behind the scenes stuff for sure.
Yeah.
So that sounds neat.
Yeah, it was cool. All right, so let's see. So talking about, so we have after this pandemic is done, or when we are able to, let's just say when we're able to resume filmmaking, when the world is really starts to come back to a sense of whatever the new normal is going to be. Do you think that, like, movies, this is just wild speculation, where do you think do you think we're gonna see movies that are going to be a little bit more polished and glitzy and maybe a little bit brighter and cheerier, or do you think we're gonna see a darker, grittier, just these
It's an
where do you
interesting
think?
question,
Yeah.
but I have to say I don't know that it matters very much. If you go back to post 9/11 movies like
Mhm.
Rendition, and there's a whole bunch of them that are about torturing and all this dark stuff, Lions for Lambs, about the politics of the new world. And it's not unusual for artists to want to reflect the whatever events that they've just lived through with their ideas and stuff. They get inspired by that, but none of those movies made any sort of financial impact, or they really didn't. They were seen and they're still around, and some of them are great, but people didn't really want to watch movies about that.
Right.
So it's not, what I can say is that you're going to get some sort of artistic reaction to this stuff, because you always do, but I'll be fairly surprised if those are the films and those are the projects that connect with the public at large.
Yeah.
I really think it's interesting because that's, the Star Wars movies and even the Marvel movies are in a big time of transition here. They both had apogees of some kind in just our recent history. So they're starting a new kind of, so even what those are going to be, I think you could have a good sense of what the third Spider-Man movie is going to be, but you know what I mean? What all that's going to be, what those big event movies are going to be, isn't a for sure thing.
Yeah.
So, and even the ones that are sort of in the can, the what's the, I forgot the character's name, but the spy character, Scarlett Johansson's character.
Oh, Black Widow.
That movie's ready to rock, and there's a Wonder Woman sequel that's ready to go. And so you've got some of these things, that will wait a long time for it. They'll be the first things that we get, these things that were made 2 years ago.
Right.
And it's great that they'll have those ready to go and that they're not releasing now because they aren't making anything now. It's curious to me what kind of work is being done behind the scenes, like just writing and planning, because I don't really know.
Yeah.
But I don't think, all I can say is I don't think that stuff is going to be affected by this at all.
Yeah, I
don't think a fictional pandemic movie like Contagion or Outbreak or something. Contagion maybe is a useful film in terms of what an outbreak might actually be, but all other Hollywood disease movies are ridiculous.
Yeah.
So to make a movie about a real one like this would be boring.
Sure. Yeah.
Even though it's our lives, it's like, you see the way these sorts of things slowly eat away at you.
You touched on something that I think is actually a more accurate representation of what I was trying to get at with this question. Is it's not. It was more what is gonna connect to an audience. A brighter, polished, maybe a slightly happier movie as opposed to a darker, and I think you bring up a good point. After 9/11, there were artistic reactions there. Yeah, and so I think you're right. We will get both.
Flocked to in droves was the same stuff they always flocked to, which you'd argue
Mhm.
was not the darker stuff. But those big movies got a little darker, than they'd
Mhm.
normally be, even though, comparing, uh, uh, comparing the
Yeah.
two approaches to storytelling is very useful.
As I was thinking of, when I was coming up with this question and then thinking about what my answer would be, I do sort of feel we're going to get, and I think we're going to get some movies that potentially are going to be that could resonate with an audience, are like these, pleasure in the little things. These maybe some quieter, maybe even quirkier movies that have a light touch to them, that will make that an audience will that it will resonate, because of what we have all collectively gone through, having been stuck inside. There's going to be some movies, I think, are
Maybe every once in a while
making the
those
best out of the situation.
every once in a while those are pretty good. Like
Yeah.
Wonder is pretty good, and there's a handful of films like that I think are great. But mostly people who really want that in their lives don't turn to cinema. They just watch Hallmark Channel
Sure.
Christmas movies and
Yeah.
stuff.
Mhm.
They're, and I don't want to say those are disposable necessarily, but they're the artistic equivalent of
Yeah.
inspiration porn Facebook posts,
Yeah.
basically.
Boy. Yeah.
So there will always be that, because there'll always be people who want that, and that isn't the worst way to spend your time in front of the TV, in my opinion.
Mhm.
Watching stuff that's inspirational and positive, and you know what I mean.
Mhm.
But I'll be surprised, and partly it's just the mechanics of it. The first movies we're going to get for the first year after the movies open and everything are the movies they made 2 years ago.
Right.
And whichever of those are hits are the things they're going to copy the next year when they start greenlighting stuff, because that's just how Hollywood works.
Well, sure, and we're gonna need to also have. There's going to be I think there's going to be an element of things that should be slam dunks, because they need something that is going to really, that they are to drive people to the theaters, to save some of the cinema complexes.
Sure.
So it's
Exactly.
like it's gonna,
That's what must-see cinema has become. It's
Yeah.
become the bigger the better.
Yeah, and so
It
the fact
isn't.
that
It's not star-driven really anymore, although
Mhm.
that factors in. But it's not. You can't just stick a Brad Pitt in something and it's going to be a hit. Most of his movies of late haven't been hits at all,
Right,
because
and
they're weird, complicated movies, the type of which you're talking about.
Yeah.
He's not really interested in big movies unless they allow him to make 4 more small movies that he actually is interested in.
right.
A lot of Hollywood these days is like that.
Yeah, I think you're going to get, and it's like it's not just, oh, we need a Tom Cruise movie. We need Tom Cruise back as Maverick. We need a Tom Cruise Top Gun movie.
Right.
So that we
need
have
some sort of, it's Tom Cruise is not enough. It's some sort of
Tom Cruise is not
nostalgia.
enough. We need that extra thing that people can go, oh, I get to, see this, go back
And
to
I
this
like
world
that
again.
filmmaker. I like Oblivion, and we talked about Day After, or Edge of Tomorrow.
Yeah.
Tron Legacy, I really, really like. That's the guy who made the Top Gun sequel.
Mm-hmm. I just watched Tron Legacy again like a week ago.
Tron Legacy is really underrated. Yeah. That is a
like
really smart film.
It was really fun.
If you care enough to stop and think about what you're watching.
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
it certainly pushes all the cheesy, fun, big budget effects movie buttons, but it's better than that, actually, which I really appreciate. And it's hard to imagine a better return to Tron type film.
Mm-hmm.
I love Tron. I didn't love it so much summer of '82 because we just all loved E.T. and there just wasn't room in our hearts for our heart lights for much more of anything, really. And that whole summer's chock full of great films that were in and out of the theaters so quickly because the E.T. was such a monster hit. And watching that for the 4th time was the way for theaters to make money. So it's kind of weird. But I really, over the years, really grew to love Tron because it's a smart movie too. Really really understands what is going on inside your computer and really uses that as an inspiration to tell a cool story. And that's why, compared to really every other, I'll say maybe there was another smart one, but every other let's have a magical romance or a comedy or an adventure with a computer movies of the 80s are all completely just idiotic.
Right.
And Tron isn't. It's makes sense in a cool way,
Mm-hmm.
and it still makes sense today. And it's those other films are fun to watch because look what they think computers can do. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
But Tron is cool that way, and Tron Legacy is extra cool that way. It's really smart. I didn't like Top Gun to begin with, and I've never liked it. So let's see what Maverick's up to now, but without any of the ancillary characters that were a part of the original, and it just doesn't. We'll see. Yeah. I hope it's good, and I'll probably see it because I've seen Top Gun. But
right. Well,
Top Gun. That's not a favorite of mine at all. That is not a super well told story, to be honest.
I think it is interesting that that you do bring up that the movies that we're going to get right away are these movies that have been done.
Waiting to come out.
And the fact that we have a Black Widow, a Wonder Woman sequel, this Top Gun sequel, you
got a new Christopher Nolan movie.
The Tenet, you got Tenet.
Somebody remade The Green Knight, which is bonkers, and that should be fun. Dune is halfway done with production, so that'll be your big science fiction thing. The Avatar sequels are almost about to come out, maybe someday.
Yeah, that's a weird. We should talk about that more sometime.
We're always pooping on the Avatar sequels.
Well, but it's weird.
It's hard to know what those will be either. Those could be just what
so weird.
That could be great.
Because when they just said they're going to delay Avatar 2 for a year. They didn't just say we're delaying Avatar 2 for a year. It said Avatar 2 2021, Avatar 3, Avatar 4, and they had release dates essentially for all the way up to Avatar 5. Which was like, man, you are just assuming that everyone wants. Yeah, it's like, wow,
they have to animate them. They got to do all that stuff you're talking about.
Yeah.
In the Frozen documentary, but these actors they wrote all these scripts with these pretty renowned writers that Cameron wrote each successive one with. They've mapped everything out. They've designed all these plants and creatures, and I mean, they've done all that. And they've shot all the live action sequences. They probably have some reshoots and things they have to do, but they've done a ton of work on Avatar 5 already.
Yeah. It's
so
that is going to be, that's a wild,
will be a big deal. But
yeah,
Disney,
if Avatar 2
weird thing
tanks,
is
it's going to be bad. Yeah.
Fox can't afford to do that. Disney, it won't be known.
Yeah.
They knew what they were buying when they bought Fox. They knew the Avatar expenditures were part of it, and they can afford it. So what do they care? They don't care.
Yeah.
They really, and that's what's interesting about it, because they don't care. And if first one doesn't do very good or whatever, then they just cut our losses. That it's harder to imagine Fox executives making that call after the investment they put into it. But Disney people, they don't care. I mean, they really don't. So
yeah, it's
interesting.
That's going to be wild. That is going to be
we've said this about all of Cameron's films, Titanic, the first Avatar, which cost however many billions of dollars, and they say it every time. And every time his latest movie comes out, and people are just in awe of it, and it takes over the pop culture for a time. So yeah, this might be where that doesn't happen, but it can't be surprising at this point if it becomes the next biggest thing either.
Sure. I guess
he always has pulled it off.
But he rarely does it though with sequels. I mean, I know Aliens was a sequel, but it wasn't a sequel to one of his own films.
Right. Terminator 2 was one of his biggest films, and that was a sequel. That was pretty much a remake of one of his own films.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Well, so
that film, more than Aliens or The Abyss or Terminator, that Terminator 2 put him on Spielberg's level and
I would agree with that.
Top of the walk guy. So,
Um,
and
well-
he's really good at writing sequels. He's
Mhm.
really, really good. Aliens and Terminator 2 show us this at, excuse me, doing the same thing again, but different in key enough ways that we're all exhilarated and interested in it.
yeah.
But 4 sequels, geez, that was,
Yeah.
it's such a weird number too. Couldn't you just made it a trilogy somehow? Why 4?
Why? Yeah. Why?
It's like he decided he didn't want to make movies anymore and just wanted to get to the end of his career somehow. And since Avatar was the biggest movie in the world, he just sort of threw a dart at it and said, well, that's it.
I guess
That keeps me in mini subs and aquariums for the rest of my life. I don't want to do anything else. He even said, I'm not in the part of the movie business anymore. I'm in the Avatar business. That's such a depressing thing to hear
really great filmmaker. Yeah. Wow.
It's sad, but maybe it'll be great. It might be great. It's hard to say. You know, who knows?
We'll
continue to talk about Avatar.
Yeah. This kind of dovetails. I don't think this question came up. This is a question from Rob. But we're talking about
friend of the show.
Friend of the show, Rob.
Future guest host, Rob. You might even see him.
Future
next
second
week
guest, secondary guest
out.
host. Yeah, if I can get off my butt and get going on that
soon.
But he, so he was asking about opening week box office stuff. Do you get affected by seeing what a movie makes in its box office the first week, and whether that makes you want to see a film?
Yes, it's not the box office take that affects me. There's that doesn't happen in a vacuum anymore. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
We were talking about it in the summer, alternate summer movies you left behind episode.
Yeah.
Hercules, came out and was a big hit, and I didn't know. Nobody liked it.
Mm-hmm.
But somehow The Rock was in it and it made money. Some kind of weird, strange magic. And back in the day, things would come out, and like The Island, remember the Michael Bay movie that he did with DreamWorks, came out, and I went and saw that in the theater, and there were a lot of people there, and I thought that was a big hit, and it wasn't. It was a huge bomb, in fact. So, but back then, I didn't know, and I didn't care. And now you can't not know or not care. The opening take is everything about the conversation of the film. We've talked about that countless times on the show too. So I'm affected by it because it affects everything now. But I'm more like, what's the reaction? What's Seth Meyers making fun of? It's that sort of thing. And they don't make fun of big hits that are stupid. They make fun of expensive films that are failures.
Right.
Every time. That's it. That's the thing. We talked about it, movies as a competition, or movies as a sport that you follow rather than an art form. And it's always been about businesses and commerce and profit and all that stuff. It's all important. A film that's profitable and a film that's a big hit is. But it's funny what we think of as, if you go further back in time where you were a little bit out of the cell phone and social media, like everybody thinks that Waterworld was a big bomb. Waterworld was a huge, expensive disaster of a production, but Waterworld's a big hit. It made Universal a bunch of money. It really made a lot of money, and it's stunning that we look at it differently, because back then the conversation was different. And nothing could have saved Waterworld's reputation, even coming out, even being seen by everybody, even being one of the top selling home videos of all time, even being a massive international hit. Even though it was a decent US hit, we still think of it as a colossal Heaven's Gate type of disaster. And it wasn't. It just wasn't. And the facts show that was not that.
Yeah.
So it's weird. Perception is reality, though, and maybe it's better that everybody has those box office numbers and those facts at their fingertips, so that at least they're ripping on something in an accurate way. But it's weird to me. It does affect everything, but it doesn't affect my opinion of a movie so much. But my perception of it the story behind the story that we're always trying to tell on our show. That's how I view everything. So you can't
not. Yeah. It made me, it made me mad, and I quick grab my phone to see if it still exists. Where like the Hollywood, where the box office and, sort of where all of that sort of came into my consciousness, like, but was a friend of mine about like 20 years ago, when I was still living in New York. What we, when like it was slow at work, we would go on the Hollywood Stock Exchange, and it's this fake stock exchange, fake market where you're buying and selling and trading on different movies, different directors, actors, and stuff. And it was just a fun way to sort of track who's, whose stock is going up, and, who's sort of on a free fall.
Sure.
And I just remember and for a period of time, probably like 6 months, a year or something like that, that was a big deal. It was super fun to do, sort of like trying to identify who, like, oh, this, this bit player in this other movie, I think they're going to end up being a giant star. And so you buy low on this person and watch them take off. And it was, it was a stupid way to just sort of follow it. But yeah, and obviously
now that the reality of corporate film studios has sunken in, and we see the results of it in the art, that sort of thing isn't fun anymore. It's what it is.
What it actually
it's not become, movie business. That's what the movie business is, in a really harsh corporate businessy sort of way.
Yeah.
And and we all make fun of like Nicolas Cage or John Cusack or whatever, or even Liam Neeson, who they're working really hard. They're doing tons of dumb movies because the dumb movies are what their agents are been able to wrangle for them.
Mm-hmm.
But that's it. It's that or go away.
Right.
When your stock is low, truly, it's that or go away, or hope that Quentin Tarantino thinks you were neat in some 70s movie and revitalizes your whole career or something.
Right.
There's only a couple guys in all of Hollywood that can do that. And even some of the big ones are way too scared to do it. Way too scared. Watch any Steven Spielberg. Watch Lincoln. That's packed full of only the most recent hot actors available for each of their roles. It's got a lot of like can't be burnt small part character actors in it as well, but all the young people and stuff that show up in that are all hot. He's not pulling anybody off the scrap heap or even the post, even a movie he knows that millions of people aren't really going to see. So that's the reality. If Spielberg, of all people, if he wants to make a movie about the Vietnam, the Pentagon Papers, he's got to put names in it, and he's got to do all this stuff just to get it out there.
Right.
So, they don't let him, and Ron Howard's got his own production company, but it's not really in his control what $50 million are going to be spent on his next project. That's a corporate decision now.
Right.
So even those guys who we think as sort of the princes of Hollywood, unless they're being brought in to do whatever, which they're not necessary in the Marvel universe. The Marvel universe doesn't need great directors at all. At all. It doesn't need them. And it started off with a handful, and now you've seen it just doesn't bother with that. It needs really good writers, though, and it's like a TV show in that way, where it needs really good showrunners that can juggle all these story elements and that can balance some sort of new way through all this old material. That's really, really important. But like, who's just setting up the shots and picking which cuts to use? It's not important, but it's like, who directed your favorite Game of Thrones episode? It matters, but it doesn't really matter.
Right.
And you're going to see more of that. You're definitely going to see more of that with Star Wars. I almost guarantee you that's the model that they're going to follow going forward. It's not going to be hire a filmmaker that's interesting and let's see what they do with Star Wars. None of these corporations, they're not interested in seeing what a young hot artist does with an existing property. They just want to keep it afloat and keep it good enough that people just keep coming out and seeing stuff. artistic choices are
right. Well, yeah, I mean, we've seen what happens when they turn a property over and say, let's see what a Rian Johnson can come up with in the Star Wars verse, and what he comes up with.
There's too much riding on that to have the backlash like they had over it.
Mm-hmm.
So they can't do that. So it'll, and that's too bad, because Rian Johnson's an interesting filmmaker.
Yeah.
That is the right way to do it, in my opinion. He's a writer director. He's that film, love it or hate it, most of you hate it. It's his fault. There's no question.
Yeah.
That is going away. And that means less interesting storytellers working on that level. But at the same time, they gave Denis untold millions to make a Dune trilogy, even after his awesome Blade Runner sequel didn't make anybody any money. So there's still some people in Hollywood that are making these gambles, and they're gambling on talent, and that's exciting. But
yeah,
I look at Dune with a great deal of personal excitement, but when we talk about the business of movies, I'm just like, ugh. Yeah. What are they thinking? What are they thinking? They already had an interesting wonderkind director try and do this material at the height of his creative powers, and it's considered mostly a disaster. So why are they doing that same thing again? It seems crazy, but
yeah, because it will be interesting, because it will either be, wow, they figured out, or it'd be a mass market reaction of, wow, they figured out how to do this material and everybody loves it. And then will the people who really love and live for the books, will they be like, wow, they just totally trashed every...
That doesn't matter. You say this and bring this up a lot. Well, I just really love Watchmen, the graphic novel or whatever. But
sure, yeah.
That counts because it's part of the discussion. I'm not saying it doesn't, but the numbers we're talking about, getting butts in the seats, most of the vast majority of the people who saw Watchmen the movie had no concept that it was a graphic novel ahead of time. They didn't know, they didn't care.
I guess what I mean, what I mean was
something is based on, how many people you connect with coming to something cold.
Yeah,
most people who see Dune won't have seen the previous Dune.
That's true.
Or certainly not read those books.
Yes, my guess and my feeling you're not going to get with Dune. It feels like you're not going to get a like Lord of the Rings reaction where people who love the books also love these movies, and people who never read the books love these movies.
But a lot of them didn't.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay. I guess
the Tolkiens didn't love them universally, and a lot of the fans who really, really love those books didn't love those movies.
Okay, so well, there you go. So that
most people just haven't. We're young nerds who grew up in the '80s, grew up in the '70s and '80s. You probably encountered The Hobbit or maybe read The Lord of the Rings, but by 1999, the kids who, they didn't read those things.
They didn't read them.
And if they were inspired to read them by the movies, they were probably completely disappointed by the fact that there were absolutely no female characters of any consequence in them. By the fact that they stop every 10 pages to sing a song. That you can't sing a song in a novel, so you just have to read the song.
Yeah.
I'm not complaining about that. That's what makes the world building of those novels so exciting. But they couldn't have been that as a movie. And I think when you're trying to please people who really, really love the books, you can't. You absolutely can't. You've talked about how the ending of Watchmen sort of ruins it for you. Otherwise they very faithfully shot the graphic novel. It's structurally, everything about it is the same.
Yeah, clearly
I feel like, well, but it's cheesy. What? And you're saying the graphic novel's not cheesy?
No,
you need to check it out again. It's a weird, corny comic book. That's part of the point of it.
I clearly must have given the impression that I really didn't like the movie. I really didn't like the ending, because I really loved that ending, and that,
the bonkers ending. And you see with the television show, obviously, to be fair, didn't have to recreate that ending.
Yeah, I still
think is visually and like what you were talking about with Frozen, with, you know, what's her face sliding up a hill or what.
Yeah.
To try and do what that end of that graphic novel is, and I always talk about it without spoiling it. It's just,
Yeah.
I just hate to spoil it because it's so off the wall, crazy good. I just don't think they could have done that. I found that I'd always think they found a thematic, consistent way to achieve the same ends in a cinematic way. Maybe not for every kind of movie, but for that big movie, I really think the original ending would have opened it up to even more ridicule than it's already taken, to be honest.
And that's certainly a possibility. This kind of dovetails nicely into.
Sorry, but the original point isn't so much Watchmen is it good or bad. It's you can't please people who are that in love with a certain piece of literature, even if it's a comic book. You can't. So you can't be trying to. That's a mistake.
Sure. Okay. So then let's move. It's not literature, but like another beloved franchise.
Sure.
Star Trek. CBS All Access has a new Star Trek cartoon or animated.
Decks.
Yeah, Lower Decks, which is
based on one of the greatest episodes of Star Trek: The Next Generation ever.
Sure. And so, but if it's
certainly one of the only good episodes of its final season outside of its big ending.
I think by that time I was not a regular watcher of Next Gen.
You were a freshman in college. You had a lot of stuff on your mind.
Yeah. But we have this comedy.
I made you watch the Deep Space Nine pilot, though, at least.
Yes, and I enjoyed it, but again, it was one of those things where I just didn't have.
You were super digging it. I didn't think you'd like it that much, but it didn't make you some sort of loyal Deep Space Nine watcher.
No, sadly, maybe it's a show. At some point, I'll get it to get it and
going back and watching Next Generation again. It might be worth your time because it's all the effects have all been updated and it's all in high definition. It looks great on your TV. Nice. Deep Space Nine is not being shown the love in that way, so it's.
Because by the time
it really is traveling back in time to 1993 to sort of.
By the time Voyager came out,
also not getting the love, but nobody loved Voyager.
I started watching, and then when we watched Voyager a lot when we lived in New York. We were big.
That was the Star Trek show that was on.
Yep. But so does this sort of workplace comedy animated series, I think about, one of the great things about Star Trek and what Gene Roddenberry was trying to create with this world or this potentially future universe where
I always have the same thought when I let you finish your thought, but
I was just to say
I always have the same reaction to Gene and his bright shiny view of the future.
Yeah, his bright shiny view, and there's obviously still conflict, but how
he was right about one thing. We're all sitting here with our tablets and wearing our pajamas. He got that stuff right.
He got that right. But so it's how conflict is, there's still obviously, fighting and massive wars and conflict and things like that. But,
and racism
and things like that. Yeah.
Everything that's wrong with our society today is wrong in the Star Trek universe.
Correct.
So I always start the discussion when I want to be a troll about it. I always start the discussion. I always say, Gene Roddenberry was a hypocrite. And that's one of my favorite get everybody spazzing out things to say that I honestly believe. I don't think in a bad way necessarily, but I think his storytelling shows that he may try as hard as he can to throw in a little, we've moved past the need for money and all this, but he demonstrates like any good artist would, and he can't help himself to demonstrate that the future has all the same problems of our present and that they all need to be solved. And that the neat thing about it is that if you just do the makeup right on a person, you've got this free reign to take on those issues even though you're coming at them in a disguised way, you can come at them more directly, and that's the beauty of Star Trek.
So we have this Lower Decks show coming out then. Obviously I haven't seen it. I don't know what the overall tone of it is. It sure feels like it's going to be a little bit more silly.
Maybe it's animated, and Lower Decks was, although if you really want to get an idea, and I think anybody can do this even out of context, you don't have to be caught up with serialized Next Generation to do this. If you've seen Next Generation, you know the characters, and you didn't watch the last season much like Joel or whatever the deal is, go watch Lower Decks. If you have, it's on Hulu and it's on CBS All Access. It's probably on Amazon too. Maybe not, I don't know. But go watch that episode just as a single episode, because it is an outlier episode that takes place from the perspective of these four friends who are all low lieutenants, young people who are the whole episode takes place during this extremely important mission that's happening with our main characters. And we're privy to none of the information about it because we're these peons on the Enterprise, basically. It's a fantastic episode. It's just really, really good.
It feels
and you should
like,
check it out because that'll give you a sense, I think, of what this animated show is going to be.
It feels to me
comic,
So
light and fun, but also with its serious moments. Just they come at you in weird ways because you're just not top of the totem pole. You're not up there making the decisions. You're not in the briefings. And what happens to you and what you have to deal with is very specific and can be very frustrating.
There's two things that are popping in my head. It feels like the graphic novel series of Astro City, where the whole, it's a metropolis type city that's populated with all these heroes, but all of the graphic novels are all essentially from the perspective, almost all of them are from the perspective of just people living in this city where there are, fantastical things going on all the time. And they're just like, oh, great, another giant battle. Here we go. Let me get my things and get my go bag because I probably should try to flee the city because this person's trying to, okay. Well, no, it looks like that's been averted and only a few blocks have been destroyed. Okay, so we go back to the rebuilding process. I love it. So it comes at
huge events
from the perspective of
janitorial perspective.
Exactly. And so it makes me think of that. And of the second point I was going to make, and I knew I was going to forget it. Oh, shoot. Oh boy. I totally lost my train of thought, or what the second point was, piggybacking off of something you said. So I guess it'll just be interesting to me to sort of see where this new series, assuming it's good and assuming that it accomplishes what the people who are making it are hoping to accomplish. It'll be interesting to see where that sort of what that does with this beloved franchise and how people view it. I
like the idea of it very much. I like that episode. I can't rave enough about it. It's one of the top 5 episodes ever of Star Trek: The Next Generation.
Well, I'll definitely go check that out television. Then. Yeah,
it's really good to see. Because one of the Lower Decks, there's 4 of them. One of the Lower Decks is Nurse Ogawa, who's on the show a lot. She's this minor character for Dr. Crusher to order around, basically. But she's been on the show for a long time, so to see her as an actual fully fleshed character is interesting. And she can do no wrong. She's getting her promotion. She's not just considered an employee, but a friend. She gets this great employee review. You get to see Worf as this very nurturing superior, boss, which you wouldn't think he would be. One of the Lower Decks is a Vulcan who doesn't understand any of what's going on in terms of an interpersonal thing. That's always fun. There weren't a lot of Vulcans on Next Generation, so it's neat that they included that perspective because that's been done before, but it's neat that it's part of this episode. And best of all, I guess, is the A plot, which I won't spoil, but best of all, from the put upon Lower Decks is this young lieutenant ops officer who he said, I guess he's an ensign who's about to get his review to become a lieutenant, and how Riker has just taken a complete irrational dislike of him, and even though he's a decent enough guy, he could do nothing right. And it's hilarious. It's really fun because you get to see Troy and Riker from a completely different perspective.
Sure.
So even your characters that are in it it's just fantastic. I love that episode. I love it.
Well,
so I love that they're, why not? There was a really, really good idea. Maybe they can't mine it any further, but unless they clearly don't have the balls to think up anything new. So if they're going to steal from Lower Decks, by all means, do it. That's a great episode.
Very cool. Very cool.
Yeah. So I hope it's good. I've seen the trailer. The animation looks better than I thought it was going to look. For a weekly animated show, it's hard to, it can only look so good.
Yep.
It looks good.
So. Something that just popped in my head that has come out in the last couple of weeks when we took a break. Since speaking of animation, I'm just going to throw this out there just so I'm on record as how excited I am. There's a chance that they're going to reboot or have new episodes of Clone High, one of my all-time favorite animated shows.
Any animated show that was good, has some sort of following, or has created some sort of cult legend in its wake, they should be redoing. Yeah. That's how you put all these out-of-work actors back to work. It's how you create new content for TV. Get animating.
So I'm excited about that.
With apologies to the people in the computer banks doing the animating, but if you can social distance at work, and if people can work from home, and you can do, if you can get a person to take a mask off in an audio booth that you can keep sanitary or whatever. I mean, that's a thing to do. And like you already crowed about that. Go back into which episode is that in? Our One Season Wonders episode?
Sure. Yeah, I think it was our One Season Wonders episode.
Joel loves that. Go back and listen to him raving about it. And if they do make new episodes of it, that'll make a lot of people happy. And it's a great idea.
All right. So speaking of things coming back, so as I was trying to research some things, hashtag thanks Batfleck was trending, and it was a bunch of people that are like Ben Affleck's Batman was underrated and he's not coming back to do anymore.
It's weird because I don't know that it was underrated. Everybody seemed to love it, and yet they all seem to hate that movie so much. It's odd.
Yeah. So
I still think that's weird. We have a buddy of ours who will remain nameless, but every once in a while he'll review something, and he'll talk about how he cried 4 times during it, but at the same time he hated it. And I feel like even if a movie made me cry once, that's pretty amazing. So I just don't watch things the same as some people. It's perfectly legitimate to hate Batman versus Superman. Why not? Everybody does it. Why just join in? But to think Ben Affleck's, it's half the movie. It's a little more than half the movie, probably. To think that his character or his take on the character or that storyline is just garbage. It isn't. It's great. Him on the ground watching the destruction of Superman and what's the bad guy's name?
Zod. Zod
fight. Again, that change in perspective. It's so powerful. And that's how that movie starts. It starts by taking something that was controversial about the last movie and turning it into the driving force of the next one. Damn. I just really, you all know my take on Batman versus Superman. It is great. And one of the great things about it is Affleck's performance and just the whole take on the character. I would have liked to have seen more of that, but he wasn't going to stick around just to be a whooping boy or watch these corporate people firing talented folks and reworking stuff. We're going to get to see Snyder's, at least his version of Justice League, which I don't think can be very good. But there's no chance it's not going to be twice as good as the abomination that the Suits tried to put together when he, for understandable personal reasons, had to step down from that. It can't be worse than that.
Right.
Because movies can't be made that way and be good.
Yeah.
I believe in my heart that they can't. You need somebody making artistic decisions, truly. And nobody was, I mean, Joss Whedon ran the post-production of that and the reshoots and stuff and the re-storytelling, but, and he has some, his just cornifying it up and everything. He takes some of the blame for that, but it's really not his fault. The problem, to me, is that fundamentally that way of redoing something, you just kicking the writer off and taking the movie away from the director in the Fantastic Four reboot, you were never going to get a good movie.
Yeah.
If you watch that movie for the first hour and a half, or first hour and 15 minutes, it might bother your sensibilities, all the different liberties they're taking with that storyline. But the movie is something. It's a legitimate artistic take on the material. And when you get to the end of it, when the Suit stepped in and just tried to make it something else, it isn't good. And it's obvious where that change happens. So
yeah.
So I don't know why I'm saying this about what you're saying, but just in general.
We're just talking about. Well, you were answering the question. Yeah, you were answering the question. The implied question is what it was to discuss. I mean, to
even
continue
his
a discussion about
cameo in
Batfleck.
that stupid villains movie, the Suicide Squad, is awesome.
Like every time
that character shows up, it's like this, they're doing this right. It's great. So what were they doing wrong? Superman? I don't think so. I think people just don't like Superman anymore.
Right. Yeah. Well, Superman is a really interesting character.
I don't think they did it wrong. I don't think they did Lex Luthor wrong. I really don't. I don't think they did any of those things wrong. Maybe they did Doomsday a little bit wrong. But if that's it, get over yourself. Good gravy. Or you'll never get another smartly plotted superhero movie again. You're just going to get junk.
Yeah. So we have the news that apparently there's, I don't know if at this time it's been finalized, but that Michael Keaton may be coming back then to play Batman.
To play some older generational version of Batman. Yeah,
play older. Do you have any thoughts on that? Do you have any thoughts on Keaton coming back?
As a letter in a bottle, it's a great idea. It's neat. I'd like to see that. I like Michael Keaton. I thought his take on Batman is whatever. Honestly, it's how they play Bruce Wayne that's important. And Michael Keaton's take on Bruce Wayne is interesting. And taking that Bruce Wayne from those style of films and bringing him into a different one, that's all sounds cool. Yeah. But for the belabored DC executives, whoever they are at this point, they're already got a Robert Pattinson Batman movie coming with Matt Reeves directing. You got to give that a chance to be good. It should be. Everybody involved in it is pretty accomplished. So how are you going to work him in? How are you going to have him show up with Wonder Woman? What are you really going to do with him?
Yeah.
That's what matters ultimately, because Keaton can do it, but is it worth doing? And I don't know. It's a cool idea though. I really do love the idea. Yeah. I think DC have handcuffed themselves to needing all this continuity and they don't have it anymore. Henry Cavill was reported as saying he's never going to play Superman anymore. He never said that. Matter of fact, he finally, months later, came out and said, "Yeah, I never said that. I'd still play Superman again. Superman's awesome."
Yeah.
And everybody's like, "Really? We thought you were like enough of this." And he was like, "I think they've had enough of me, maybe, or they just aren't happy with the work that we did. But I'm proud of it. And if they want to try something different, I'd come back." He said, he didn't say it. I'm going to just say what he was saying. He was very British and very careful about it.
Yeah.
But, he basically said, we all hate Justice League and we all think we all think they made us, sort of embarrassed us with that, which is something that you don't want to do with actors on that level. They'll take just about anything, but the last thing they want is to be made to look foolish.
Right.
And that film does that repeatedly.
Yeah.
And that's too bad.
I do remember him talking
but
about
even
how
Batfleck in Justice League is pretty awesome somehow. So, wow.
Yeah. So, okay.
So I agree.
Yeah,
I should have just said that.
Yes. No. Well, if you would have said I agree, then what the heck are we doing a podcast for?
Well, maybe we'd have gotten more questions in.
No. Let's just do let's do one more. Let's do one more here.
Okay.
Okay. Well, here's one. I
love this, by the way. We could, if you got enough, we could do this next week too.
Well, let's see. Let's see
fun.
if we. Well, I know Rob has some really interesting ideas for a show.
Sorry,
that
Rob, I forgot
for a
about
show
you.
with us.
I forgot you were standing there.
Yeah, he's
we got to have Rob on. Rob's last show with us was fun. It was really cool.
Yeah. And he's got some, because we asked for those listening, people that we've talked about having as to join us. We're like, well, what is it that you can get excited about talking about?
Yeah, what's your
Rob
passion? That's what we want to talk about.
Yeah, Rob has sent a few things that
he's a man of many passions.
Yes, indeed. All right, so where is it? Oh, so here's some. This would go all the way back to episode 1 or 2 of our podcast, but I honestly don't remember it. What do you do if someone asks you, "What's your favorite movie?" I'm not saying what is your favorite movie. I'm like, because I have a feeling I know what you would say. If someone asked you what's your favorite movie, what do you do? Because I know for me it's like,
first I always hedge a little. I try not to hedge with this question.
Mm-hmm.
And when we talked about it in our very first episode, I said, my advice to everyone was try not to hedge. Oh, there's so many. There's this. Try and spit out the first thing you think of. You can change your mind. Nobody's writing this down. This is not going to be used against you in court. So there's no reason not to try and commit to something. It's a fun exercise. But the way I do hedge is that distinction between the best movie and where I really do hedge and favorite movie.
Sure. Yeah.
My favorite movie has changed through the years. I've had a bunch of different ones, obviously. It's weird that I never considered my favorite movie when I was a kid, but I do as an adult, and it's a movie from my childhood. I always say it's Raiders of the Lost Ark. We talk about that in depth, and we will have a Indiana Jones series of deep dives, which will be 10 episodes, I'm sure, and you'll all be along for the ride for that, so I don't have to get into the whys.
Yeah.
But I picked that, and I've got reasons why, and I elaborate on what they are and why that's my favorite. It's very closely a favorite with a bunch of others that are right there with it. So, but why do I pick that specific movie? And there are reasons for it.
Yeah, because I just again, so many people are like, oh, why, don't ask me what my favorite movie is. I see, well, when you mean my favorite, they try to break it down by genre. They try to break it down by.
That's the legit emotional way, especially if you're a cinephile, to react to that question. Rob on his Facebook page today, in particular, he's playing this online 30 movies in 30 days.
Oh, okay.
Stay-at-home game where they say, now your favorite this, now your favorite that, now your favorite this, now watch a movie from the 80s, now watch a movie from the 60s. And he's sharing it with us as he goes along, which is really fun. And today is favorite comedy. And he just goes off on all these comedies that he loves for these different reasons. And you get to the end of it, and I'm reading this whole damn thing thinking, because I want to know what it is.
Yeah,
it's hard to choose something, right? And I get to the bottom, and it's probably be one of those. And I was like, what are you doing? So he doesn't even, I think he'll have to watch one if he's playing the game. So we'll find out what it is. But pick one. I know it's impossible.
Right.
That's what's fun about it. Pick one. Just pick one. Just pick one. That's fun because that gets you talking about the movies and not about all the blah, 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 and what about this and what about that. Even whatabouts, just start saying titles of movies. Don't answer that question without naming any or talking about any movies. That's criminal to me.
And have a reason, and have a perspective.
Yeah, but don't even let that pressure you. It's just because that's part of what's hard about doing it. It's not a chore. Try and pick something, and on the spot, try and think about why that is. Let that choice,
why was it
that line of thinking? You don't have to have a preset argument.
Yeah, have a gut reaction, and then try to figure out, well, why did that movie pop in my head? Why?
There is not a right or wrong answer to that question, so there's no reason not to try and answer it.
Yeah,
that's what I said back then, maybe a little less eloquently, but that I still believe that. That's a fun discussion. It's why it was our first discussion. Get to know us a little bit. Our first show is not a paragon of podcasting excellence, but you get us. You get to get a sense of what we are and what we think and the way we think, and for that reason, I think it still has value back there in the pole position. That's why we left it there. And we thought it was too long at the time, but this episode's already longer.
All right, final question.
Because we just love the sound of our voices.
Final question. If you had a boat, what would you name it?
Tina's Joy.
Tina's Joy?
Let's bring that back. That boat got pretty wrecked and retired. I would reboot Tina's Joy. And maybe because of that, because I'm some cool, awesome 70s like boat pilot, maybe I would find my own Tina that way. It's possible. It's not impossible.
It's not impossible. I'm not saying
it could happen.
It absolutely could happen.
No, I don't know. That was that's an impossible question. So I was
but that's great. That's great that you.
I would never own a boat, and I would try as mightily as I could to name it something cool instead of something lame, which you really should name your boat something as lame as possible.
Yeah.
Maybe the boat which contains Joel and Ryan. That's straight into
there. You go. The boat with Joel and Ryan. And we'll just get this
logo.
If
you can't think of something cool, think of something true.
We'll put this logo on it, except just right here, it will be right here. Up, it'll just say boat.
What port would it be from? It's the other important part of the name.
Yeah. I don't know. Yeah.
Titanic, Liverpool. I can just see that in my mind. I know that was Port of Liverpool. I don't know what port it would be.
Port, the movie show Port.
Nassau, that's a good one.
Yeah.
Any of those Caribbean
we could just go full on Minnesotan and just be like Minnetonka.
Sure.
The boat with Joel and Ryan, Nokomis.
I'd like to think I'd have an ocean boat.
Well, I guess we could have
not a lake boat.
Lake boat.
But if I was gonna have a lake boat, I would want, because especially if I had a lame name, I would want it to say Excelsior.
Excelsior, yeah.
Double meaning.
What a great one. That's a good one.
We're not rich enough to visit Excelsior, let alone live there, but whatever.
Correct.
Maybe we could get our boat stamped that.
Well, sure, you gotta have
some suburban lake cred.
There you go.
You really have to be Minnesotan now to enjoy this part of the show.
Yeah, this is the for Minnesotans only section of the movie show with Joel and Ryan.
We don't do that very often, so hopefully you'll forgive us.
All right. Well, I think that's a good place to probably wrap it up for this week. All right. So reach out to us on Facebook at the Movie Show with Joel and Ryan page on Facebook, Twitter and Instagram at Ask Joel and Ryan, and askjoelandryan@gmail.com is where you can send us an email. And we'll talk to you next week with more fun and frivolity. And
we're
movies.
Still taking applications to come on the show.
Yes.
You don't have to come on the show and talk for an hour. If you want to come on for 20 minutes and just talk about something, we'll have you on. We don't want to put pressure on people, but we're having fun meeting with listeners and hanging out with friends, and we still want to do that somewhat. I'm working on a couple of people that I think I'm going to get, and we are going to have Dana back. It's going to be in a month or so. Our awesome Dana to do top Jane Austen adaptations.
And we
We're
will,
looking
you know,
forward
and
to
I
that.
like
That is going to happen. Rob soon, maybe next
Mhm.
week. It sounds like Joel's got a plan. So
yeah, it's a plan based on how much work, how much I get done with my other stuff that I have to.
but come be part of the show
Yes,
too.
come be part of the
We'd
show.
really appreciate it. It'd be super fun.
I
That's
think it'd be
we'll just
wonderful. If
add
you
that.
want, I'll send you our graphic, and you can have that behind you as well.
Yeah,
Or we'll take a picture of
do
Ryan's
that.
background.
But any unauthorized use, and you will be hearing from our lawyers.
All right. Thank you, everybody. Have a wonderful week, and we will see you next time on the Movie Show with Joe and Ryan.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
We'll miss you.
Thank you for listening to The Movie Show with Joel and Ryan. Remember, all views and opinions represented in this podcast are personal and belong solely to the speaker and do not represent those people, institutions, or organizations that the speaker may or may not be associated with, unless explicitly stated. None of these views and opinions were intended to malign or deceive. And now, here's the producers, circa 1982, to play us out.